Hi, I'm Jennifer Carter, and thank you for joining me on a podcast for parents, teachers, and administrators. Today's conversation should be a good one, and I'm sure it's something on your mind. So let's get to it.
Let's get started. First, I know who you are, but I want to make sure that the people who are listening to our podcast knows who you are. So if you could just tell us your name and the name of your organization.
Fantastic. My name is Dr. Terrance Stone. I am the founder, executive director of Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy. We operate primarily in the Inland Empire.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit more about Young Visionaries. What do you do at Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy?
Sure. At Young Visionaries, we have a plethora of different programs. One, gang intervention, workforce development, mentoring, I think all the programs, mentoring, mental health programs, community outreach and engagement, tutoring and things like that. So what we do really, we contract and work with school districts. And so we're in close to 50 schools right now, going in, working with kids, either doing mentoring, mental health programs, workforce development, gang intervention programs, mental health programs, and things like that. We also contract with the county as well, though, too, with Los Angeles and San Bernardino County, going into the juvenile institutions, working with those young people as well.
So how did you get started? Tell me about the young Master Stone and his evolution into, because I'm going to assume that you didn't start out on this track.
Oh no, we started off rocky. Let me tell you that. But I think when we started, I started off just doing like gang intervention. My background, I was a second generation gang member. So coming out of that lifestyle.
Wait, pause.
Yes, ma'am.
You got to go back, right?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily think about gang membership generationally, and we don't necessarily think of it as a lifestyle. So why don't you pause and share a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah. Well, it was rough but exciting at the same time. My biological father, he overdosed on heroin when I was 2. So my mother remarried, I was around 6 years old. But the person that she married was a founding member of the neighborhood or the gang that me and my brothers were. So just growing up in that, like people say, oh, it was violence in the house, violence around the house. But for some reason, it felt secure to us because we were used to that situation and used to being in that environment. So it didn't seem like, oh, my life is in danger every day, which my life was in danger every day. But I still remember, hanging out with my little brothers and playing with toys and playing video games, things like that, playing Pop Warner football and things. But we still lived in a gang household. So not just my stepdad, but also my mother's brother and all of his brothers were being affiliated in street hustlers and things like that as well, though, too. So with me coming out of that and realizing that you don't have to live like that, even though your family is that or you live in that community. And so I want to come back and let young people know that it doesn't matter like where you come from, what environment you lived in, whose household you were raised in, you can do and be whatever you want to do and be in life. So that's what we kind of do at Young Visionaries. And we do that through systematic programming, mostly call it behavioral modification programs, because wherever we go, they give us all the kids that's messing up. And so our job is to work with those young people to get them back on track so that they can be successful.
So I'm going to assume, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you grow up in a household where everybody is affiliated, gang affiliated, you have a normal household with an extraordinary circumstance or context, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you kind of reframe your life to say, wait, this context, I get it. My parents love me and they provided, but this context is really not ideal. So how did you shift your mind thinking about that?
Well, that didn't happen. I was almost 30. So it didn't happen as a teen. Plus, too, as a teen, I didn't have people, um, well, males, like positive male role models around me that um that that were successful, that looked successful.
Mhm.
Actually, growing up, every successful looking African American male in my life at that time was a drug dealer.
Mm.
So then that's what we looked at, because those are the ones in the neighborhood that had the nice cars and
Mm.
had the jewelry and the nice clothes and things like that. And you can tell that they were doing something successful, you know, even though, even not knowing what they're doing, basically.
So something lucrative, but not necessarily even successful.
Was something lucrative. Well, in their field is successful in that, in that category, but also too, a lot of those um, attributes. If you take away all the negative stuff, it's like I still use a lot of those mentalities and attributes to this day. The
Yeah,
positive.
and I was actually about to ask you, like, what did translate and what did transition really well?
Yeah, well, I call those transferable skills, like the ability to communicate, uh,
Mm.
ability to just understanding what you want to do and pursue that 100%. The ability to be able to network, things like that, and talk to different people. There was a lot of attributes that I took from that, right? Just transferable skills, and use them in a positive light to this day. Now, so even working with kids, even kids that even kids that are brought up and raised in that environment, I tell them, like, you got transferable skills. Sitting in groups, and I see one is real talkative, and this one has charisma, and this one is really book smart or math smart. I like all those skills that you've been using, you know what I mean, or even just strategic. I tell them, like, it take you, it's a lot more work being a criminal than you think, right? Because you're sitting there, for one, especially being a gang related criminal, because for one, your antennas are up all day, because it's people um, looking for you that you don't even know that exists, looking for you. They're just looking for the color that you have on. Or nowadays, they can just see you on social media and be like, yeah, we're going to get him one day, basically. So just with them having their antennas up all day, and their heightened awareness, going on with them, most of the time, even when they sleep, I say that just think, if you take all that energy and put it into a business, whatever business you want to do, I don't care if it's a barbershop or selling shoes or selling waters or whatever you want to do. You take all those attributes and put it into that, and all that awareness, and all, and whatever it takes for you to do that, put it into this, and you'll be successful.
So I think one of the things that is really standing out and would explain, why you're successful is because you're validating the things that they already are doing. And you're just transferring that validation and putting it into a different context.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, you're showing them how to navigate through life with that, because a lot of times when they're talking to people that haven't had their experiences, right? So they're trying to take everything from them, basically,
Mhm.
and say, okay, we just start off from scratch, and don't worry about this and don't worry about that. But they really have stuff that they can use. They're like, don't take that. you know, they can use that. They can use that energy that they have and put it into something positive and make it beautiful with it. They just need guidance to see that and do that. Also too, I try to be there, like I feel personally, going to the juvenile facility, work with the kids. I'm a state national gang and adventure prevention specialist. So when I go in there, that's what I'm doing. I'm a subject matter expert in that. And,
Mm.
and the reason that I personally go in there, we still have other staff and teams that go in there, but I go in there because I feel like they have to see me,
Yeah.
and my story, so that they can see that,
To
because
that transition.
yeah, that you can do it. I can do it. If I did it, you can do it. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm not the sharpest tool in the toolbox. But I took all that energy over here, and it came out successful. Now you
What
can
was
do
the
that with all that
catalyst?
stuff.
Like you said, it didn't happen till you were 30. What happened when you were that old to like make the turn, the switch for you?
Well, at 30, 19, what was that, 1998. I was actually 28, actually. But
Oh, don't worry, I do. I'm like, how old was I?
1998. So I still remember distinctively because I was facing 2 life sentences, right? Plus 25 years of life.
What?
Yeah, a lot of time. And so, but in that situation, realized that, being raised in my community and, being around all this time, and I actually did, been going in and out of incarceration since a teenager. I have it in my book is called Move in a Room Full of Vultures. Um,
Mm.
and so I have it in there. But at that moment, or at that incident when I was facing that time, I realized that my community, or my homies, or whatever you want to call them, didn't love me like I loved them, right? Because I felt like everybody just turned their back on me. So now I had to make a decision at that point. Do I want to stay and just be like what I would call at that time an abusive relationship, and stay in that abusive relationship, or should I just move on? So then
So
I
you felt abandoned
I felt
by
abandoned. I
your.
felt people turn their back on me, all of those things, basically, all
Mhm.
those feelings. So I had to sit with that while facing all that time. And and then that just made me like say, I'm done. I have to find something, better for me to do at this time, in my life.
So so since you're not in prison,
Yeah.
clearly you didn't have to go for all
Yeah.
that time. So what was the next step? Like once you found yourself cleared from that, or not cleared, but over that hurdle, or over that potentially life-changing, life-ending obstacle, what was on the other side of that obstacle? What did you get into?
Well, for one, I got extremely busy. I checked back into school, right? I checked into college. I was working 2 jobs. I had a family, but a young family at that time as well, though, too. So I just got busy, and also too, like building a nonprofit. Um, like back then, this was 25, 26 years ago. Like there wasn't a lot of trainings. Now you have all type of capacity building trainings and trainings on this, and that wasn't going on. Like my original documents is literally on a floppy disk that I can't even get off because they don't make them no more.
On a
So
floppy disk? Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that was a long time
the,
ago.
the square ones at that. But I had to figure it out, right? But like I said, all of that tenacity and everything that I was putting into this lifestyle, because in that lifestyle, we just figured it out. If you're in a situation, you better figure it out. If you need something, you better figure it out. So the same thing, I'm over here now, like, oh, I got to figure it out, And so I just started reading up on nonprofits. And at that time, I don't even think the internet really existed at that time. Like you had to go really to the library and research stuff and get books and things like that. So that's what I did as well, though, too. I went to college, took sociology, and then while I was working in my part-time job, I met this guy. I didn't even meet him. I was driving shuttles at the airport, Ontario Airport, and an older white guy got on the bus. He had his fancy car, and he got on there, and he's all charismatic, and he was just having conversation, and he seen my sociology books right there. And he said, "Oh, I see you going to school. That's good, young man. What are you going to school for?" I said, "Yeah, well, I'm going to school to be a youth counselor, because that's what I wanted to do at first." And so he said, "Well, that's good, because very honorable of you, but you seem like you don't want to make no money, because if you own a youth counseling company, right? If you own a youth counseling company, then if you don't feel like going to work on Monday, you can still get paid, and you can." And he was just, what he did within 15 minutes or 5 minutes from driving in the parking lot to the airport, was explaining to me why I should run my own business instead of going to school to work for somebody. So I went back to school and changed my major from sociology to business,
Mm.
and start working on a young visionaries and things like that, from there. And then that also too gave me a new purpose. So not just a job, right? It gave me a new purpose, because now I'm a part of something bigger than what I am, instead of just going to get a job with someone.
So then you did the same thing you advised the people in your program to do. You hustled. You
Yeah,
took your transferable skills and you hustled that into something that you could nurture and grow
Yeah.
without so much threat of violence
Yeah.
or incarceration and
Yeah.
even poverty, because although those people who are good at, street life stuff, drugs, prostitution,
Yeah.
whatever, it's lucrative in the moment, but the retirement plan really kind of stinks, right? you know,
Really
and
kind of zero. Yeah. So,
right.
yeah.
So you took all of that and put it into something that had a lot more longevity. And
Yes.
how did you pick San Bernardino to do this? Or did
Well,
Young Visionaries start in San Bernardino?
yeah. Well, we actually started in Ontario area, and actually just wherever I was living at, that's where I was at.
Got it.
So when we started, I was living in Ontario, and then we moved to San Bernardino, and I just picked it up from there. And then so now we're in San Bernardino area still. We have 2 offices in San Bernardino, 2 offices in city of Victorville.
Very nice. And how many employees do you have?
Approximately, I think around 35 employees.
Why that, right? You have, like you said, you have the skills of hustle, clearly you're brilliant, clearly you're driven. You could have gotten into different industries, right? Why this industry? Why this industry that is focused on community and young people?
I think because this is purpose driven, right? This is not just my job. This is like my mission, basically. And I love going in there, working with young people, watching them succeed, watching them get it. The light bulb come on. And they can make it sitting across the table, either in group settings or one-on-one settings, and working with young people too. And the other thing is that because if I was doing anything else and I was successful in it, they wouldn't see us or they wouldn't see me, right? Because let me tell you something about Black folks. Where we live at, where we started at, when we get a check, we go. Like we're not gonna stay in our community that we grew up in. We can't wait to hurry up to move, you know. And so
Yeah.
but I think pretty sure that I think we're the only culture that really does that consistently.
Yeah.
And so, but when we do that, our young people, they don't see success because the drug dealers stay there, right? And they there every day.
Right.
The pimps, they stay there. The gang members, they stay there and they're there every day. But everyone else that has a job, I don't care if they work for the school district, the county, or whatever. As soon as they get a good check,
They raise up. They're like, I'm out.
they're out of there. And so because of that, they don't see us. That's why our young people, the average male, you ask him what he want to be, he's gonna tell you football or basketball,
Because they're highly visible.
because they see him, right? Even if they're not living in their community, they see it. They can turn the TV on and see them on
Yeah.
now that
That's a really interesting point. I have to say, I grew up pretty privileged, and I grew up in a I was just literally, that's why I was late to this. I was talking about, I grew up in a predominantly Black middle and upper middle class neighborhood. So everybody worked at the post office, or my dad was a bus driver, my mom was. So you saw, right? And then people didn't leave because it was a nice neighborhood.
well, yeah, Atlanta was like that too back in the day. And then we had certain parts of Los Angeles and things like that.
Yes.
They were it was like that for a while, right? And then or just different communities. When I talk to people from Atlanta that's around my age, they say, yeah, I grew up with a lot of Black people and everybody had a good job. There's the principal, the post office man, and
But
everybody in that community.
but like you said, not all of us, and all of us have a relative that lived there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And all of us have spent time there, but I never, I think that was so striking to think about, you have to be where the people who can't get out and who can't leave, you have to be there so they can see you, so they know that it's possible. Like, you can go back and forth and you don't have to sustain this, but you have to be able to show them. And I think that's really, really wise that clicked in for you, for people to see you.
Yeah. You know what? I have some great friends like now, I'm talking about successful man of color. Like I'm talking, they own multiple businesses, they're superintendents of school districts, they're, like they're doing all types of like great things, making a lot of money and just having fun and raising their families and things like that. But you didn't see that back then. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, where all y'all brothers was at when I needed you, you know, back
Where
in the
you
day?
been?
Yeah, because I did not see that. You know what I mean? When I went outside and I'm with my brothers and we went to play and I, like legal success wasn't like right there. You know what I mean? And really the hardest working people that went to work every day in the community and you seen them were like the women.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
so now when I look back, I'm like, well, that's why, or when I grew up, I like that's probably why the girls that grew up in the same community are doing way better than the men because they still had examples of the mothers that they didn't really go no place, because they were right there and scraping and making it by and whatever we got, we gonna use it, and make it happen. We about to get this can of beans and turn it into some fantastic for dinner tonight, and just make it happen. So they still had those great examples, but the men, um, when we went outside, they were not the great examples in a good way, basically. But they taught us, different like courage, and and stand on morals, even though those morals
yeah,
will not get you anywhere,
yeah,
because the wrong morals, you know,
yeah,
um, just all the wrong things that they taught us in those communities. Like just right. I just quoted my book sometimes. Like my uncle was like they gave me the worst advice growing up. So, but I listened to it to a T, no matter what it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
man, like this is what my
yeah.
uncle said. So this is what I'm gonna do. And so yeah, just growing up like that. But we have to be able to figure out a way so that young men and women of color can really just see us, because I stay really visible like in the community. Like right now, we're in our San Bernardino office, just doing community outreach and engagement. They're down there today doing an event. So we do large events, small events all the time, and I come out and I'm out there with the people when we go into the neighborhoods. I pop up and hang out for a little while, with the people and just making sure that they. So when they asking like, well, who is that? Um, but that's our boss. Like he the boss. Like yeah, I'm like yeah, man, I'm the boss. And so that they can like see that right and hopefully remember like man, I remember this guy came through here and looked like he was doing okay, you know. And so I think I'll be okay too then.
That is, that's fantastic. And I think, we have that kind of synergy. We do a lot of events. We're always out in the community. And it's interesting, as you were talking, I usually let my staff, which is all female, out of all of our employees, we have my husband, and then we have one other man who works for us, just by coincidence. Early childhood education just doesn't attract a lot of men. And I always move back so they can shine, right? So I'm not at events, or I'll go and I won't tell anybody who I am.
Yeah.
And I was, as you were talking, I was like, why do I do that? And it's just what you said. It's the visibility. They want to see someone who's risen up and who is stable and who is a good role model. I mean, if I wasn't successful, that was on me, right? I had all that I needed to be successful. So I do love that you're putting yourself out and showing, again, you can bridge that. We do a lot. Oak Tree does a lot of events. As you know, we're always everywhere. I'm at a conference, right? So we're always out in the community. We're always engaging with the community. So you tell me, as folks are listening, what do you advise parents and community, just normal people? How should we get involved? How can we have that visibility like you're having and be of service like you're being?
I think just do it, because like our events are extremely large now. Like we just did Christmas, we had around over 2,700 kids and toys out there for kids, and all the teenagers got free Nikes and tennis shoes, and Adidas comes out, sponsors the snow, and Thanksgiving, over 1,000 turkeys for 1,000 families. We do 1,500 backpacks, Harvest Fest events and things like that. But when I'm saying all these numbers and we have all these large crowds, like it didn't start off like that. I remember I drove this little bitty Mustang, and all the toys I was going to give away would fit in the trunk of that, And so now we literally need a U-Haul truck to get the toys from point A to point B. But so I would say just start where you at, right? Because people see me or see you and be like, man, I want to do that. I'm like, yeah, you could. 100% you could. But start right here, because you don't got to do that budget right now, right? Just do this, and then you can work to that. And so that's why I tell people, just do whatever. Like if you have 10, 15 toys, give out those 10, 15 toys in a grandiose way, you know what I mean? And let people know what you're doing, and hopefully they'll support you, on the next one and things like that. But just start where you at and just make it happen. I don't care if you want to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the kids in the community, and you don't have enough for all of them. You better cut that thing into 4 little squares, give everybody a little piece, with some juice or something, and be like, it's gonna get better later. You know what I mean? But just start where you at in the community that you're in. And that's just what happened with us. I started in Ontario because that was the community that I was in. When I moved to San Bernardino, I just kept doing that in the community that I was in, basically. So, so they can do it and make it happen. Just go do it.
Well, I'm going to actually pause this. Believe it or not, that's a half an hour. It goes fast.
Yeah, it did. I was just getting warmed up. I was like, when the good questions coming? Those are easy.
You're like, those are easy questions. The whole, the podcast is for parents, teachers, and administrators. And the whole idea is to just access different resources and hear different stories. Everyone that's on the podcast is someone that's easily accessible in the neighborhood, whether it's in our LA diaspora, so to speak, or our San Bernardino area. And it's really exposing people so they know who's there, they know the work that's being done, and they can get involved.
If you like what you heard, or even if you have some feedback, put a comment in our comment section. Be sure to like our page and make sure that you subscribe so that you can hear when the next video comes out. Thanks so much again for joining us.